To State of Play, 2 days after the debacle in Assin North. The debacle, if you're only an NPP supporter, sympathizer, executive, or in this case, the president himself, you know. So I'm asking a simple question. Is there really hope for the NPP for 2024 after this?
Well, I mean, I think that it's too early to write the NPP off. It's obvious that times are hard. It's obvious that things are not going well in the country. And so, let me say this. If what Assin North has shown you is that if elections were held today, the NPP would lose. Okay? If elections were held today, the NPP would lose. Also because of everything they did. Even that one, people can play, but it's just an indication that times are hard today. If elections were held today, the NPP would lose. But would things remain the same? If they do, they will lose.
When you say things, what are you referring to? Are you referring to the economy?
Yeah, the economy, because Evans, there's hardship in the country. Let nobody deceive you. So if there's hardship in the country, and look, watch things this way. Even though, and I still say that James Jeshiko had about 100 votes gain, the NPP lost some 2,000 votes. So it gives you a signal, okay? Now, if you look at it from that point of view, and compare that to the Kumewu elections, the by-elections, where there also, the NDC had about 1,000 votes gain, almost.
Yeah.
Then, you can actually say that, well, it looks like people are gearing towards the NDC because of the current circumstances that we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
Is that enough to conclude and say that the NDC is going to win the election?
Have you seen the disco lights? The disco lights in the studio.
I don't know what's happening.
You know, but talking about disco light, we flipped before the Assin North by-election, right? From one of conviction that the NPP was going to win this, to one of wow, NDC is going to win this, which was, I mean, on the day of the elections and closing into the counting. So after asking ourselves, they actually did it, and they did it with a significant margin of victory. For me, I was looking at the margin. The margin is quite huge. Achukwu Singh did fantastically well, kept his core base, increased the percentage. NPP lost significantly in terms of the numbers that it lost, more than 2,000 in Mensah. And you were making the point that the elections were held today just based on Assin North. What if I throw in a bit of a monkey wrench in that? Assin North, some may argue, it's not Ghana.
No, it's not Ghana.
Is it representative?
No, you see, this is the point. So when I say that if elections were held today, MP may lose this election, could lose the election. If elections were held today, it would favor the NDC more than the NPP.
They definitely have the momentum.
They have the momentum going forward. But again, and I'm also saying that, look, times are hard today. So the main thing when it comes to elections also is looking at your situation. Of course, you'll have to contextualize it and say, what am I going to get from this party? Now, a lot of factors would play in 2024. Who even gets to lead the NPP, and what would be the processes leading to that candidate's victory?
Yeah.
Okay? So the processes leading to that candidate's victory could actually shape the NPP's own electoral fortunes. So if, for instance, whoever wins convincingly, and there is no challenge, or there is no feeling that I was robbed, then you would have a party that would gather around one candidate and say, let's go into this election. Now, mind you, that person, yes, is going to be campaigning on President Akufo-Addo's record, but it also depends on how that person is going to position himself compared to John Mahama.
Yeah.
We have John Mahama, who's governed between 2012 July to 2017 January. You have somebody from the NPP, and depending on who wins and what he comes on board with, and even what he has done, okay? So that in itself would shape election 2024. I think that, and I've always insisted, that even when at the time I was expecting the NPP to win, I still said this was not going to be a referendum on the performance of the government. Or this was not going to be a referendum on how to expect things in 2024. Because it will be too early. We have 18 months to go.
And that's a long time in politics.
A long time in politics. A lot of things can change. But the NDC has the momentum going forward. And if they tried anything that worked for them in Assin North, they may want to try it again.
But here's the part about Assin North that I also think is quite distinct from the rest of the country. I think the Jachikwesin factor was huge. I mean, and I agree with you, it's not a referendum. Because if Jachikwesin wasn't in the equation, they will be looking purely at Shewa Sitinemuna to Abapa scenario, right? But because you have Jachikwesin and all his legal troubles, I think he answers a significant factor to the question of why the NDC won with the margin it did and why the NPP lost with the significantly reduced margins it did. And a lot of the analysis was centered around, well, this is NDC has momentum, yes, but is this momentum based on a factor that realistically will still be prevalent in December 2024? My argument is that not so much because of Assin North, because of the Jachikwesin. If you going into elections, what was the biggest selling proposition for the NPP and for the NDC? Jachikwesin.
Yes, you're right.
Both parties had Jachikwesin as their unique selling propositions. The NDC was pitching, as we analyze this, they had pitched him as a victim of injustice, right? As somebody who the legal system, our judiciary has been conspired to hurt and to victimize. The NPP was doing the opposite, again, him, as somebody who justice will catch up on and his freedom may be curtailed, and therefore, even if he wins, he will go to jail and he will represent you. And so why are you going to, the fear factor, right? That was the biggest campaign message. In fact, the economy, the current macroeconomic circumstances that affect the ordinary individual, I didn't hear that as much in the campaigning in Assin North. Everything almost was around the Jachikwesin factor going into it. And that factor will not be there in 2024. Because, of course, this is a peculiar case. So I'm still looking forward to post the results in Assin North. Because, by the way, the reason why this for me is important, post the results in Assin North, interrogating the predominant or dominant factors that accounted for the NDC's victory.
So let me tell you something.
Is it Assin North predominantly?
Okay.
Is it Jachikwesin predominantly? Or is it the economic circumstances of people?
But you see, but this is one thing. When it comes to parliamentary elections, the reason we vote individuals, and the reason we've actually seen skirt and blouse in parliamentary elections is that a lot of it depends, one, on the candidate, and two, on the party's political strategy.
Yeah.
Now, in this case, I think the NDC, even though the whole elections, surrounded Jachikwesin, the NDC got the strategy around him well.
Yeah.
They got it spot on. They got it right. And that's how it worked for them. Look, and I think I heard Mahama in some of his rounds talking about the fact that the times are hard and they should vote, for Jachikwesin to send a signal to the government that they're not doing the right things. And that, the current situation is bad.
What was he referring to? Was it really alleged victimization or something that economics?
Both. Okay. And he actually tells them that if they bring you money, take it. Because that's your money they have taken. And they're not bringing it to develop your area. They're just coming here because of this one, take it. But this is the point. The NDC's framing of the Jachikwesin whole thing. And to a large extent also, the NDC realized the NPP was playing a certain kind of game. And they played it better than them. So the NPP was playing the game that, vote for somebody who's not going to go to the jail. They even put who's not going to go to jail. Okay, vote for somebody who's going to have time. This man is facing. And I do not know who told the NPP that as part of their strategy, they should actually use the guy's criminal prosecution against him. Because, Evans, even us seated here, when you come singing that kind of song to me, it gets to a point, it gets irritating. I would ask you, why? Why? It gets to that point where you ask yourself, why are you after this man?
And also, people like the underdog.
Yes.
When you have the state against an individual, right?
Yeah.
The state against an individual who has been in battle since 2020, right after the elections. Chances are people may tend to take the side of that individual. If it is a state, and there's a perception of the government using the state machinery to victimize him. That framing is always there. People like the underdog. And so that's why I'm just buttressing your point. So if that is your message, that then becomes a message that is likely to fail, because all the other person needs to do is to sell himself effectively as a victim, right? This small guy, one person who has the entire state machinery supported by the government after him that's a very powerful underdog story. And that sort of story sells in an election. I mean, look, when neutrals are watching football, we like football. When neutrals are watching football, when Man City is playing some Southampton in the Premier League, who do we support?
We support Southampton.
I mean, you go for the underdog.
Underdog. You sometimes want to see them. You see, and this is the point for me. So when you run that kind of a campaign, and the NDC got it spot on, but you see, they just did not end it there. They actually campaigned. Look, the NDC really campaigned. And I think that today, one of the things and the NPP is engaged in the stock taking, one of the things they would realize is that while they were campaigning, doing, main rally, the NDC's John Mahama was still going around the villages talking to them. They started with a radio rally, then they started going around. So if you do a main rally, what have you done? You bring all your big wigs to one place, right? All of them. That's that's that old way of thinking that everything is done. So we're just coming to crown it up with, a rally. I'm sure going into election 2024, parties will even learn that regional rallies are not necessary. Go down there, do the campaign, make sure that you've touched the people, and then you can win the election. So one, the NPP got its message wrong. The NDC capitalizes on that. The NDC had its messaging right. And so once they got it right, and then they started telling the people, take the money, but don't vote for them. Take the money. It is your money. You see, in the past, and you heard Mahama make that point that, they've said that take the money, swear, and then before you vote. They should take the money, they still shouldn't vote because this is their money, and God will not, kill anybody who's done. He makes all of those points. That begins to sink in. Because ordinarily, when people take your money, they're going to vote for you. I mean, in elections, the conversations have been that, wait, spend a bit of money, and then you're able to win. I mean, that's the kind of elections we run.
I have a difficult question for you.
Yeah.
So if the MPP's message was wrong, what should the message have been?
Sell your candidate. Sell your candidate.
Especially when you had really gone above and beyond to get him when he wasn't originally part of the plan to contest, because he was coming from Assin Breku, the stronghold of that within the NPP. I buy the argument. So market him a bit more on his own strength because of all the work he's done in the constituency already.
The question I asked today is, what at all did Charles Opuko say he was going to do for the people of Assin North? What was he going to do for the people of Assin North? That what? He brings about better representation? Okay. I mean, maybe because we were in Accra, I mean, initially we had planned to go to Assin North. We couldn't get to Assin North. Maybe because we were in Accra, we never heard him. But everybody we sent onto the grounds, Evans, didn't hear from Charles Opuko. Even the campaign, I was looking for sounds from Charles Opuko. We didn't hear from him. So the NPP's campaign consistently, from what I heard in Accra here, was on vote for somebody who is not having legal problems. Vote for somebody who doesn't wake up today and is going to court. Today is going to court tomorrow. And you see, initially, I mean, we thought that the NDC's strategy to bring Jachikwe Singh again may not have been a good strategy.
Yeah, I thought it was a risky strategy.
But the evidence has shown it was the best strategy, because then it enabled them to actually campaign and say, this is the man you voted for. They used the powers of the state to get him out. Show them.
Another thing that I learned also, I went speaking to Muntaka Mubarak, apparently, in 2020 when he lost the High Court case.
2021 or so, I think 2021.
No, 2020.
No, after the election in 2020.
Oh, 2021. That's when the 7th January, they went to court. You're right. The new year.
Right.
When they lost that case, the party held a strategy meeting back then and decided and took a decision and said, what if this matter, because they were informed and guided by the Adamu Sakande matter.
Yeah.
What if this matter is pursued by the state in a criminal trial? What will happen? So they took the decision then that if he loses his seat, they'll put him up again.
Yeah.
If he loses the criminal case, which is so on now, he's been in court today, and they were confident that if the by-election comes, they'll put him up and they'll come that he will win. And the question came up in the meeting. But what if he wins the by-election and he's jailed? And then they said, well, if that happens, we will fight for him to remain, to hold on to the seat whilst we appeal the case. And then the lawyers started throwing, okay, how can we do this? And it started Dan Abodaki. And Abodaki, of course, was also convicted, but also held on to his seat until he was, I think, was pardoned.
He was pardoned, yeah.
So the NDC had also thought this through. So, and it came to, when actually this played out, would you stand by your decision? I think the party was unanimous. In fact, if you go back, it was James Achikwesi who wasn't in the mood to fight. After the Supreme Court verdict said his name should be expunged, he issued a statement and said, in essence, look, I am tired. I've done my best. I leave it to the conscience. Remember that statement that he issued? He was the one who wasn't. I remember that evening talking to the party. The party already that evening, the evening of that judgment, was saying that we want him to go. And the man himself was putting the party, but the man had this statement to say, and then the party was like, well, he's our candidate. They somehow convinced him and understood him then. If you've been through what he's been through, there's a part of you that just wants to give up. But somehow the party stuck to the original plan that they had and convinced him to stand. And if you watch his body language, he's been very calm about it. And the party, of course, has run with the message of victimization, which is one.
Yes, okay,
But I wanted to also say something, one last thing. The NPP also tried quite hard to improve the socio-economic circumstances of the people of Assin North. They tried. Possibly try harder than they've done in a lot of places as far as by-election is concerned. Because of that long-term strategy they have since 2021, when the issue happened in court. And all the investment they put in, including the roads and AstroTurf and everything. They tried. But the people rejected it. And said, well, we take your money. And I heard you play the sound today on the morning show. We'll take your money, Charles Poku's money, but we won't vote for him. And that was a big message that they were sending to the party.
You see, and that was actually the message that the NDC, was able to get to the people and say, take the money, but don't vote for them. And this is the other point. So I know, for instance, that there were some NDC executives that I spoke with, had gone for a funeral. Some of them had shown at that funeral. And that was on the 3rd of June. Immediately after the funeral, they said, I'm going to Assin North. And one actually said, look, we must fight this injustice. So I'm going to Assin North to go and do everything possible. I don't have his permission to put his name out, so that's why I'm not putting his name out. Yeah. I'm going to Assin North to do everything humanly possible to ensure that we win, as in the NDC wins that election. And he went there. Okay? He went there, started, their campaigning, and they went to the most rural parts of the constituency to campaign. They went through streams to go and campaign. Now, you could see a party that had a point to prove. And I'm saying, post the elections, I've taken my time, I've learned it. I've spoken to those who were on the ground, I've spoken to some of the parties, and I realized one thing, that even with the NPP, just before I got in here, I realized that there were even NPP elements who were campaigning against Charles Poku.
Why?
Oh, yes.
But why would you do that?
Because you see, in politics, sometimes it works. If I were in the constituency and I expected to be the one to be contesting, and you were brought from nowhere to come and contest.
But you know why I campaigned for him?
Oh, yes, that's not Drew that I'm talking about. It's a different person. Then you come in there and all of a sudden come and stand. If you win, the next time there will be no primaries in Assin North as part of the NPP's primaries. You understand?
Yeah.
So, even for them, that's really the right thing. And for those people, the best thing is to make sure that this man doesn't win. So he goes back. Because if he doesn't win, he's never going to come back. But that's just by the way. The truth is, the NDC ran a better campaign. The NPP played into the NDC's game. So once the NDC was singing the injustice song, they should not have gone back, they should not have gone to that same song making comments that don't vote for somebody who's likely to go to jail. What they should have done actually is that this is a man whom you've known, who has helped you, and so giving his new position, if you vote for him as Member of Parliament, he gets more connections, he gets a common fund that is accessible to him, and he could actually even do more for you.
My final point, and for me that's the biggest takeaway from this, it is what I call the incumbent killer. It is the preeminent sign of an incumbent death. And it played out in Assin North. I learned this lesson in 2016 when I was traveling across the country with ballot box. In this country, NDC and NPP, they have your core base in elections. And every election, they improve that base. But that base the core base never changes. The real determinant factors have always been the so-called floating votes. We use that a lot. If you take them away, that core base, they're always there. You tap into that. If you bring, the closer you are to 100% in terms of bringing that core base to the table, to the poll, the higher your chances of winning.
Yeah.
The first sign of defeat is the party, NDP and NDC, your inability to bring your core base to the party. Because of your core base, if you can't deliver, then forget. Because the following they will do what they will do. They will just go around and make a decision who is best for them. But for your core base, you can't do without. When John Mahama lost 2016, he lost that core base. That's why that margin was that significant. When Akufo-Addo in 2020 won but nearly lost parliament, that core base, a lot of it didn't come, but he still managed to get a bit, close to 100, I mean, more than 50% to the table. And that's why it was so close, from 1 million all the way to 300,000, I think the difference, 500,000 they're about, right? So that core base, 500,000 didn't come. And that's why it was that close eventually. Assin North proves the story, this narrative. NDC and Joseph Tukwese, they brought their core base, they carried them from 2020 to 2023. Carried them. Almost the same number.
Yeah.
Almost the same number.
17,100, 17,200.
200. Almost the same. They carried them. That core base came. NPP failed to carry that core base. In fact, that core base sat home and didn't go to the polls.
We can now reasonably infer, actually, that maybe the NPP got a lot of floating voters in 2020. Maybe.
Well, there.
Maybe.
Exactly.
Maybe.
Exactly.
And they didn't get it this time around.
So my point
is, those persons may have even been angry with the NPP.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who knows?
My point is, if you project Assin North to 2024, the biggest worry for any MPP guy tonight, and I've been analyzing the elections, is if this repeats in 2024, done deal.
Look,
if they are unable to bring, and the history has shown already, then the second year is already difficult. Breaking the 8 is already difficult. But if you're not able to bring that core base to the party on December 7, 2024, forget. Because NDC has shown that the base is galvanized.
Oh, yes. You see,
the NDC has shown that the base is galvanized.
And let me tell you one thing.
And for me, that's the biggest place MPP should be focused.
In a second term of any government, where you have the opposition party rallying around one person, and I say this thing, look, I've heard NPP members actually make the point that the way they were hungry in 2016, the NDC is hungrier in 2023 and will be hungrier in 2024. If there's anything to go by, it means that we're in for an election. We're in for a contest. This would not be like, in 2020 where the conversation was more about who was going to win parliament.
Yeah.
Because in 2020, by the time you're getting close to the elections, it looked like but there were issues with parliament. And this is why I see even the NPP's own internal elections could either make or unmake them. And it's the reason their delay in that, internal election will do them more harm than good. If they have any lessons to learn, they should learn lessons from 2007. We call it a day.
I want to read a bit more of your messages before we wrap up quickly. A calling inspector says, politics has become so expensive that it takes a lot of money It takes a lot of money even to be defeated. Of course, you would have lost a lot. Tete replied, Hanabi says Evans was not happy for NDC winning that seat. I mean, why should I be happy or why should I be sad? I mean, I have no horse in the race. I mean, I'm just looking at what has happened. Tete Francis says, of course, replied to him, he says, oh, how? Hanabi says, the reason why I like Winston is that when the result came, he accepted that he made a wrong prediction on Tuesday. Yeah, somebody finally has applauded you, honestly. Okay, that's what he says. You didn't watch him on Tuesday. Well, okay, so and somebody was replying to the comment about me not liking. He says you didn't watch him on Tuesday. I'm sure he didn't. Evans, it's not true, of course. I mean, so that's a few of your messages on our page there for almost the 300 of you who were watching us. That's it.
See you next week.
Cheers.